Hello teacher. Today with my classmate Hisya talk about the games MMORPG and start. What is MMORPG? This is acronym for Massively Multiplayer Online Role-Playing Game. A role-playing game that allows thousands of players to enter in a world simultaneously through the internet and interact with each others. They consist at first in the creation of a character, from which the player can choose the race, the professions, the weapons, etc. Once the character is created, the player can introduce into the game and increase levels and experience in PvP, player versus player, or PvE, player versus environment, fights, or by carrying out variously adventures or completing missions. This genre of video games differs from non-massively multiplayer online role-playing games in that the latter have a limited number of players. That is, MMORPGs supports a certain number of simultaneously players depending on game characteristics, such as map size and playability, and obviously the capacity of the server.
If someone talks about MMORPG, 90% of those who listen will surely think of World of Warcraft, but in reality this genre, which seems to have been invented when the Blizzard game came out, dates back up to the beginning of video games in the 17th. MMORPG are video games inherited from MUD, multi-user dungeon, or non-graphics online games from conversionally adventures and from role-playing board games like the classic Dungeons and Dragons, are born in the 1970s. The first commercial text-based MMORPG, also to the concept of mass, would require some context in terms of the mind. In 1980, mainframes was Kelton Film and John Taylor's Islands of Kesmai, which was released in 1984 at the price of $12. Winter Nights, the first MMORPG in history, was released in the 1991 at the price of $6 per hour. Despite in this year after year this game was won many followers with the consequent drops in price, remaining active until 1997. It was again returned to the be based on Dungeons and Dragons and maintained 2D graphics. At the first maximum number of players that could support was 50, but at the end of his life this title had a community that reached 115,000 players. Before seeing the NW and die, we watched the evolution of the genre MMORPG, thanks to the title Meridian 59, began the first MMORPG completely in 3D, created by the now exciting 3DO. This game is set in the medieval world that today can be played. In 1994, Bethesda gave birth to its most precious saga for the which has garnered the praise of the industry, with the title of The Elder Scrolls Arena. Another highlight within this genre was the appearance of Diablo, for many the only game that is synonymous with WoW. While the world of console enjoyed works such as the hit Final Fantasy, the PC gave the world another of the great works of the genre, with appearance of a stage of BioWare. Nor should we forget the MMORPG science and the end of the 1990. The genre began to be flooded with titles under three different names: Ultima Online, Lineage, and EverQuest. Titles that made the genre gain many followers and which are still remembered and played today. The new millennium arrived with sequels of the great titles like Baldur's Gate, Diablo, Final Fantasy, or Phantasy Star Online. Guild Wars became very successful MMORPG, being game without codes, although there are people who do not consider it a massive multiplayer game. The people of NCSoft create a game that sold 5 million units worldwide. World of Warcraft is the game that needs no introduction. It's the MMORPG among MMORPG. Blizzard Games has become an institution with more than 7 million users and is the example to follow and rival to be of the rest of MMORPG. The Witcher has become the last great discovery with this genre, created by Polish studio CD Projekt. The evolution has not only been linked to the graphic section. Every time role games are becoming more like role games. Every time the life of your character depends more on you, until it reached the point that we decided everything about a character. But until that day comes, we will continue to enjoy what is sorely on one of the longest lasting genders
History of this type of video game, we have a lot of change into the features, but the typical features are a typical game style or traditional role-playing games, which includes missions and reward systems based on collect treasures, a stat development system usually related to levels and experience points, an economy based on birth on a monetary unit or more than one. We can mention in a typical games we have two types of economy: the coins and the diamonds. In this case, the diamonds are most value than the coins, and a world set in a medieval context with characters, missions, and main story relate to this context. Organization of players into clans or groups, but commonly called clans, whether through they are directly supported by the game moderators, and sometimes people paid to watch the world. And a very interesting characteristic or features into this type of game, we can say the most commonly programming language, that is C, C++, PHP, Python, and include the ASP for an method of pay. And to continue a little gameplay about one game to see all these features and more features. Into the gameplay, we can view the possibility for the gamer to choose a character, the genre, in this case masculine, the age of the character, the the details into the face, hair, and etc. And includes a nickname. In this case, the nickname is Preva. In the video game, we can see the background of the characters into a medieval
context, and a little history about the characters to learn about the game and the context. A little tutorial to now who create different types of the video game. In the up we can view this economy into the game, the coins, the diamonds, and etc. who mention into the features in this type of the game system into the game about the economy and experience, and the fight with the characters PUE, person versus environment. And thank you.